Your dreams are bigger, bolder, and more badass than the life you're living now, but something just keeps getting in the way. Join certified coach and former therapist Diane Wingert for the Driven Woman podcast. She'll show you how to get rid of whatever is holding you back so you can stop spinning your wheels and up-level your life. Get ready to hop in and buckle up. This is the Driven Woman podcast, and we're heading for the fast lane.
Well, hey there, Driven Woman. You know, I am always so excited to meet another woman who is crushing it in her online business. But you know, the ones that become my biz besties, they're usually the women who were already successful in a corporate, nonprofit, or academic career before they said, bye, Felicia, and went out on their own. Today's guest interview is with Michelle Glogovac, who is the CEO of the MLG Collective, a boutique PR and podcast pitch agency that helps entrepreneurs, authors, and experts to share their stories. Michelle decided that an online business would just suit her life as a wife and mom a whole lot better than her previous corporate path in the aviation industry, plus give her the creative freedom that she craved. So, literally, how often do you meet a badass biz boss who was up to her eyelashes talking about jet fuel in her former life? I mean, how is that for a career pivot? Michelle and I became pals during a recent business retreat and just decided that interviewing one another for our podcast was a not to be missed opportunity. Her superpower is seeing the story inside of an expert that is just hard for them to recognize and even harder to share. This girl understands that she is in the relationship business, not the PR business or the jet fuel business. She is not only a podcast matchmaker, but has even introduced a few couples as well. She has integrity, genuinely gets to know her clients, and does a deep dive into their online presence before they even work together. She hates sleazy sales tactics as much as we do and is absolutely allergic to the copy and paste pitches that I receive. Today's episode includes why Michelle talks about the differences between promoting and sharing that really form the basis of her agency culture. We pondered together why the more of an expert you are, the harder it seems to be to embrace and share that. How Michelle feels about authors now that she's on her way to becoming one. Yeah, she's writing a book too. And we also share a couple of amazing stories about exactly what can happen when you hire a pitch queen like Michelle. And she absolutely loved that I call her that. Today's mic drop moment is this, quote, "I actually have to believe in you to pitch your business, book, or brand." How's that for integrity? So I won't make you wait any longer. Here we go with my interview with Michelle Glogovac about PR and pitching. Here we go. So I am joined today by Michelle Glogovac, who is a PR and podcast pitch queen, if I may say so myself, founder of the MLG Collective. And her whole thing is getting experts, entrepreneurs, and authors in front of as many eyeballs and ear holes as possible. The right ones, indeed. So I am really excited to be talking about all things related to putting yourself out there, whether it's you or a client that you are getting attention for. Why is that so damn hard for so many female entrepreneurs who really know their shit, but have a hard time saying they know their shit?
First of all, I loved your intro. Anyone who calls me a queen is A-okay in my book. So thank you. I think a lot of, especially females, have issues with putting themselves out there because, for one, they don't think that what they have to share or say is of value for some reason. They don't believe that their story is one that others want to hear or need to hear. They don't know how to put into words their story, even though when you talk to them, they can, and they do it eloquently and expertly. And they just don't know how to actually approach someone to say, hey, let me be on your show. Let me be interviewed by you. I'm worthy of that. And to get that across in a non-salesy way, I think that as women, we feel we're selling ourselves if we want to be on a show and be interviewed. And it's not that at all. You have to change that mindset to, I'm an expert at what I do. I'm damn good at it. I know it, and you need to know it. And I'm going to share everything there is to know about what I do with you so that you understand it, and that it's not me coming on a show to say, come work with me, I'm the best. It's here's how it looks to work with me. This is what I do. This is my expertise that I can share with you. And whether that's podcast pitching or therapy or coaching or whatever it is, to be able to put that into words and to share knowledge and expertise and educate people, that's really what you need to pitch, not just yourself and the sale.
Now, I know, Michelle, that it can't just be me. I suspect it might be you as well, who can't help noticing how many people there are infecting the internet on every social media channel and just about everywhere else, who are really what I call shamelessly self-promoting. Mm-hmm. They have no difficulty saying, look at me, listen to me, buy from me, watch my shit. This is what I have to say about this. Me, ad nauseum. And they don't seem to be the least bit self-conscious about it, nor the least bit concerned that they have little to nothing to back it up with. It's like there's this big disconnect between people who are legitimate experts, the kind of people you represent. I mean, if someone can write an entire book, like, there's so many people who say they're going to do that, who want to do that, who have that on their bucket list. The number of people who actually do it is just so much smaller. So somebody who writes a book, launches a business, has expertise in a given area, and they're like, oh, I don't know if I'm like an expert. Like, why are these people who don't know anything so comfortable proclaiming that they're experts, while those of us who actually are painfully shy on the topic? It's so frustrating.
It is frustrating because there's so many people that I'm like, we need to hear from you. The world needs to hear from you. And, I've been lucky that I've had certain clients who come to me going, I think that I need to share what I know or my story, but I'm not sure. Can you help me figure that one out? And there's one client in particular, she's a current client, who came to me and she said that. She's like, I have this story. I don't know if it's going to resonate with everyone. I think so. And I've just changed my entire business model and I've launched this business and this is what I'm doing. Do you think that I can speak on it? And what I do, and this is like the therapist wannabe in me, but I have these sessions with clients when I onboard them where I have them just verbal vomit everything to me. I want to hear your entire story. I want to hear what you think you're an expert on. And I've already stalked you on the side. I know what the world thinks of you. I know what you've put out there of yourself, what you want to be known for. And sometimes they don't mix, and I will let a client know. But it's also in me saying, you know what? That's really good. What you just said is really good. Let's word it differently. Let's create something unique so that you're not just talking about marketing. Oh, I know marketing and I can do marketing. What is it that makes the way you do marketing special? And I think that's also part of that mindset as a business owner, especially as a female business owner, that we have to jump over that hurdle of, well, I'm a publicist and she's a publicist and he's a publicist. So, what makes me different? Well, I am different. I know I'm different. How I operate is different. The way I work with my clients is different. And it's getting that out and defining it. And sometimes it's really hard for us to do on our own. I know it for myself when I'm trying to work on my own speaking topics. I get stuck in my head. And so talking it out really frees you up and gives that other person, for me, the opportunity to go, oh, this is really good. Let me reword it. Let me make it into a topic that others are going to want to be attracted to, that someone is going to say, yes, I want to interview you on exactly this. And it's recognizing that we're special. We are unique. And people want to hear that uniqueness from us. Is a hurdle that we have to overcome. And I think it just takes a lot of practice, because once we do it, we figure it out and we're like, oh yeah, we are pretty damn good. It's, like Oprah wanting to be, on the news and then wanting her own show. Well, everyone had their own show too, but she said, no, I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to do it my way. And she was quite successful, if I recall.
Yeah, I think she's kind of up there in the B club, the multi-B club. But I have so many questions about what you've just downloaded because, for example, like, is there something about you, the way your mind works, your background, your curiosity, where you can recognize a good story, like the story within the story? Because I'm helping my daughter. She's launching a new career, just finished a master's degree and is going into a different field. And I've been helping her with her resume, her LinkedIn profile, her cover letter. And from my perspective, like, she's fascinating and brilliant and creative and talented. And she's done so many interesting things. But from where she sits, like, I don't think anything I've done is interesting. And why would anybody want to hear about it? And so, maybe because I'm a curious person, and I do this for my clients too, like how they can position themselves and share what they do. I'm a word person. I'm articulate. I've been a therapist. It's fun for me to tell stories. But do you think that there's something, unique about you where you can see the story? Or is it really more the objectivity of not being that person that's the most important thing?
It is my superpower. But I'm hoping that it's not just a superpower that only I have, but one that I can share, because I'm actually writing a book on it. So I have started, chapter 1 is done. I'm starting to work on chapter 2 on how to pitch yourself. And having a book coach has made me realize that this is my superpower, but I have to be able to put it into words as to how you draw out that story. What questions do you ask? Do you ask them to yourself? Do you journal them? And the answer is yes to all of those. What is it that you think makes you unique? What are you really, really good at? What could you talk about all day, every day, over and over again? What makes you want to get out of bed? What is it that you want to do for the rest of your life? And I think these are also questions that we ask ourselves, especially when you're in the corporate world. Do I really want to do this every day? I hate getting out of bed on Monday morning. But that's what you need to ask yourself and to pull out of your story. What are you really good at? And I know that you and I had talked about this before. Me in college being put in charge of so many things that I was like, you're absolutely nuts. Why would you let me do this? But it was something that, as you also said, people recognized in me. And it is that story. I have this uncanny ability to match people, to network them. I've actually put 2 marriages together. Kind of random.
You
I
are
introduce
a matchmaker.
people. Yes. Mm-hmm. So the podcast matchmaker it could be the marriage matchmaker too. But I have this ability to say, you know what, I see where your focus is as a podcast host. I see the people you've had on. I have read your description. I've listened to your show. This is why my client will resonate with you, because this is what they can share with you. And to see the 2 come together and, make magic, it's wonderful. But that's how you also figure out what your story is. I think we kind of poo-poo what our story is, what our background is, how we've gotten to where we are today. And yet that's what's made us who we are today. And people want to hear that. People want to hear your story, because so often they've been through what you've been through, or they're going through what you're going through. And yet we don't talk about it. We don't share our story enough with other people, and yet it resonates with so many, and it has the potential to truly change lives. And I don't mean to say it lightly, but I feel that I change lives with what I do. I say I do it one voice at a time, that if somebody hears the story of one client and they go, oh, they did this, or they went through this, or, I have a client who talks about burnout and how she ended up in the ER. Well, if what she says is going to make you rethink how you work every day and ensure that you start putting your personal wellness first, then your life has truly just changed, because you're not going to end up in the ER the way she did. It can trickle to other team members as well. It can encourage managers and leaders to go, let me check in with you. Let me make sure that you're okay. And it all becomes this life-changing thing, whether we're talking about burnout or activism, or prison reform. There's so many different things that can change lives that if we just talk about it and we listen, and now we can get other points of views, we can hear a story of someone who's been through it, it becomes life-changing, and people want to hear these stories.
I think human beings have always been storytellers and have always learned from stories. And I think there's never been a better time than now. Mm-hmm. If you have a story or even think you might have a story, or even are shyly wondering if anyone other than your closest friends would be interested in that story. I mean, the gatekeepers have left the building, or at least the buildings that they're guarding are ivory tower and really not of interest to anybody anymore. If you have a story that you want to tell, you can self-publish, you can start a podcast, you can pitch yourself to be on other people's. I mean, there's just so many opportunities now that have leveled the playing field. And if you have the guts and the will and a little bit of stamina and maybe some help from somebody like Michelle, to be able to say, you know what, human beings have always been transformed through storytelling. It has never been any different. We just have so many accessible tools. I mean, we don't have to draw on cave walls anymore, people. We can literally, you can record a freaking podcast on your phone. It may not be stellar audio quality, but you can start there. And if you have the desire to get your book in front of more people or be in popular media, like I think first, even before you would hire someone like Michelle, you'd have to choose to believe that your story matters, or even just believe that your story could matter and treat it like an experiment. I do that sometimes with my clients where they say, oh, I don't know. I don't really know if I'm like fully confident about this or fully believe this. Okay, let's treat it like an experiment. Let's, for the next 6 months, pretend that you believe that this really matters and that everybody in the world needs to hear it, or at least a certain number of people. And let's just do everything we can to get it out there. And then we'll measure the data. And if the data says, yeah, apparently people, they're downloading this or buying this or reading this, that's data. So it's now out of your head and into the world. And you don't actually have to believe that it's going to change a million lives, although that's not a bad motivator either. I'm curious to know, Michelle, why you decided to work exclusively with authors, entrepreneurs, and experts. What is it about that group of people that really makes you want to spread the good news about their work?
They all have something to share. They're all experts of something, and if you've written a book on something, then you are an expert on that topic. You've done enough that you can do 50,000 words on the same topic. That's really hard. I know from personal experience now that you have to love what you're doing. And whether that's an expert or an author, entrepreneurs, they're all the same. We all love what we do. That's why we're doing it. And I think these are also choices that we make in selecting whatever it is that we're really good at, and we keep going with it. And that's what I love about everyone. It's part of the story. You mentioned storytelling. And I think that's up there with that authenticity. Those two words are like the big buzzwords right now. And, I'm going to teach you how to be a great storyteller. I see that all the time, expert storyteller. And to me, what that really comes down to is just being who you are. Sharing your story is what makes a good storyteller. It's not, yes, we don't want to hear your monotone voice and this is how I grew up and blah, blah, blah. But if you just share your story the way you are, share your journey, share whatever life lesson it is that you've learned, and share it as you, not as some fake person, not as embellished, then that's what makes a great storyteller to me. It's not a class that you need to take. It's simply showing up as you are, who you are, and being honest about what you know and what your journey's been like. And that's what makes a good storyteller. And that's what all of my clients do.
Apparently it is something that a lot of people think they need to be told how, which is kind of interesting because, and you're right, we both have our thoughts about what an expert is and what the word authentic happens to trigger in us. But at the same time, we've been telling stories all of our lives. Like if you got a D on your report card, the whole walk home, you were preparing the material for the story you were going to share with your parents about why you didn't get at least a C. And if you went and cheated on your hairstylist with someone else and you came back, you were going to have to tell a story about why that happened. I mean, it's human nature to tell stories. And while I'm a huge fan of the internet and podcasts and all the tools that make it possible for literally anyone with a phone or even a borrowed phone to connect with other people who have a similar interest, too many people feel really stuck and stymied. Now, I'm guessing my next question is going to be, if the person themselves doesn't feel really comfortable promoting themselves, how does it work when they hire someone like you? Like, does something have to shift in them for them to be comfortable with you promoting them instead of them promoting themselves directly? Or is there something I'm missing about how that works?
No, oftentimes they don't feel comfortable promoting themselves, pitching themselves. But what we're striving to do is not necessarily promote them, but to share their knowledge, to educate people. And that's what my job is overall, is I am not here. Yes, I promote you. Yes, I pitch you. Yes, I want the world to know about you. But what we really want is for the world to be educated on whatever it is that you know. We want to elevate you as the thought leader. We want to share your story. And in turn, yes, that is promoting you. But it's more about being free and generous with your knowledge. And that's really what it comes down to, of sharing of yourself, of what you know, teaching others, and not being sales-like. I don't want my clients to come on a show and be a salesperson. That's not the point. That's not what I do. And I remind everyone at the end of every show, every host I have ever come in contact with will say, can you share with people where they can find you? It's like the most common ending. And that's where you get to promote how they can find you. And you can give them a gift of a freebie, of a download. Follow me on, social media. Here's my website. That's the promotion part. But the rest of the interview should be you genuinely, authentically showing up and sharing your knowledge to educate others, because that's what, especially podcasts, to me, that's what these are about. It shouldn't be, here's my book, buy my book, buy my book. What's in the book? Why is this important? Why did you write it? Why did you want to write it? It's all of those other questions that is what I'm pitching. And yes, in turn, we will promote the crap out of you. That's what ultimately will happen when you are showing up everywhere. It is being promoted. But the whole pitch, the whole process should be about you sharing your knowledge.
Can you tell a story about like a really unique experience, something maybe surprising, unexpected for someone that you represented? Like, everybody wants to be on Oprah, or everybody wants to be on the top rated podcast. Everybody wants, to be well known. And I love like the stories about the underdogs, like the people that you just think, they have a really unique perspective, a really unique offering. The way they show up is really different. And the world needs more different. The world does not need more of the same old, same old. So can you share a story? Does somebody come to mind that you were able to get that exposure for and something magical happened as a result? Hey, it's Diane with a quick interruption to the episode, because I've got a couple questions I just need to ask you. 1, are you where you want to be in your business? Are you making the money you want to make, working the hours you want to work, seeing the clients that you want to see, and getting the income and impact that you went into business to get? And if the answer is no, what's holding you back? Why is there a gap between where you are and where you want to be? Do you know the answer? In my experience working with female solopreneurs, so many of them don't even really know what's standing in their way, and that is so frustrating. So I created a little quiz called What's Holding You Back? There's a link to it in the show notes. If this is you, please take the quiz. And if you do, DM me on Instagram at Coach Diane Wingert and let me know your results. Now, on the other hand, if you already know what's holding you back, If you already know what the obstacles are that are getting in your way from achieving the income and impact that you deserve and desire, then I don't want you to take the quiz. Forget about the quiz. Go directly to the other link in the show notes and book a consult with me. I may be the very coach, and this may be the year that you put all of that behind you and really have the business that you went into business to have. For everybody else, keep on listening. And if you find value in what you hear, don't forget to leave me a rating and review on Apple or wherever you're listening. Here we go, back to the show.
So I remember when we talked about what you introduced as habit stacking, so pairing your habits. And when you did initially bring that up, my initial reaction was like, ugh, like that sounds awful. Like, I don't want to do that. But that was like one of the first things that one of the first shifts that our work together had changed. And that is something that I'm grateful for every day. So the first thing I do in the morning is I go pee. And so what your advice was, take your medication, right after, have your glass of water there in the bathroom. And so that's sort of my daily routine is going to the bathroom, taking my medication, contacts, coffee. Yeah. And it's great because it just cuts out any chance of forgetting, which then would lead to kind of lollygagging around. And I'm like, oh, wait, have I taken it? I should take it. Wait, but this one other thing. And so that really starts off the day so consistently and well. So that is the first thing. And then with regards to the rest of my morning routine, my best friend and I, we live together and we exercise in the morning now. So we've been doing that for the past 4 months, like at least 4 days a week. And so we do beach body, and it's just really fun because we do have the accountability of there's going to be someone waiting for you. So your butt better be up.
I really have, I can share 3 stories, but
Ooh,
2.
Over deliver, baby.
That's what I like to do. I underpromise, I overdeliver. It's who I am. I think that there's one thing that I had for 2 clients that was in common, and it's a misperception that a lot of people think that they need to have these huge social media followings in order to pitch themselves. And that couldn't be further from the truth. To me, it goes back to knowing your shit, knowing what you're good at, really being an expert. And if you're an expert in something, it doesn't mean you have 100,000 followers. You could have bought those 100,000. So I've had 2 clients who came to me with literally, one didn't even have an Instagram, had nothing.
Shocking.
She hired someone when she hired me to start a social media platform. Another one had 200 followers, and both were like, are people going to want to hear from me? And I've said, yes. Like, if I believe in what you have to say, then I have to become your number 1 fan in order to pitch you. That's one of the first things. I have to believe in you. There's no BS. You have to show up as you are. And I have to really go, yeah, you know what, Diane, you do know what you're talking about. So let's get you out there. And it's proven them right. The one gal, who launched her social media when she and I started working together, landed 17 interviews in 4 months.
Not bad.
And she was thrilled with it. And it just goes to show you that you don't need to have a social media following. The same thing with the other client. She had 200. It might have grown to 500, but she was also landing these interviews with some bigger shows within her niche and was like, oh, yeah, okay, this is great. I had another client who, this is really the magic. She already had a big following, but she had a lot of different topics, a lot of different likes and interests. She was an advocate, an activist for different things, and a DEI strategist. And she had all of these different things she could talk about. And so we promoted it all, let's go adoption over here. Let's go Black Lives Matter down this way. We're doing DEI. We're doing C-suite stuff. We were pitching her everywhere. She landed a C-suite level job. And in the interview, the CEO said, what are you doing? Because you are everywhere. I have seen you show up everywhere. And so we like what you're doing. And that was part of why she was then hired for this new role and got to where she is, because of the magic of being everywhere and promoting what she knew in all of these different avenues. And it led to this incredible job. So you get a new job out of being on podcasts and in the media.
Actually not a bad outcome. But you're making me think about something else, Michelle, which is that you and I have both drank the same Kool-Aid. When you are an online entrepreneur, everybody's told niche, 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 niche. And yet there's a group of people out there that refer to themselves as multi-passionate entrepreneurs, multi-potentialite. There's all kinds of new terms for this, where they refuse to niche. And they say, I do a lot of different things for a lot of different people and catch me if you can kind of thing. I still tend to think when it comes to PR and podcasts, because podcasts are really, really niched, right? I mean, there's unbelievable podcasts about things you would have never even know existed, but there's a podcast for it. So do you think that people in general, I mean, this person, she got great exposure, she got the job, but it kind of flies in the face of the conventional thinking that if you want to be found, you got to keep going to one place again and again and again and again and again. Was that kind of an unusual situation? And would you generally say to people who are looking to be discovered and more visible that they really do need to focus on one target in general?
I think first it depends on what you want out of all of it. Do you simply want to be a thought leader on ABC subject? Do you want to talk about your personal story, which is very different from what you're an expert on? What is it that you want to talk about? You can talk about, what are your goals ultimately in all of this? And when I create topics with a client, I tell them we don't have to stick to one subject area. I have one new client who she does branding and marketing in the wellness sphere, but then she has a personal story that's a little different. And then she wants to talk to wellness companies, but then she also wants to talk to end users. And so there's a lot of different things going on and are at play. So for me, I'm fine. We've got 6 topics, 2 for each category. And what I do is in the pitch, I only pitch the specific topics to the host. The media kit's attached. So if they want to look at it and go, oh, well, you can speak on this, and I'd actually like to talk to you about this one instead of this one, they can do that. That's up to them. But in order to also let the host know that I know what you're talking about, and I'm not just going to, throw spaghetti on the wall and say, here's everything that she knows, even though some of it's not even related. Good luck, figure it out. I will show you that this is what I think would be a good fit for your show and what my client can speak on. So I think it depends on what you're comfortable with. Do you want to get specific, or do you want to talk about all of these things because you're passionate about them? I think it's okay to do that. For my own topics, I will speak on starting a new career in a new industry while having children at home. That's totally different than talking about traditional PR versus podcast PR, but I talk about that as well. I'll talk about, should you launch a podcast or should you be interviewed on one, and what the differences are. So they're all kind of interrelated, but they're also different at the same time. So I really think it depends on what your goals are ultimately and what you want to talk about. What are you comfortable talking about? Some people don't want to share their story. Some, I have one client who has some interesting twists and turns in her backstory, but doesn't want to talk about them because, there's family members that are still around and she doesn't want to, cause rifts with them. So it just depends on what your comfort level is. And maybe all of the interviews that you do will eventually lead to you sharing more of yourself. And just whatever it is that you want to put out into the world. It's ultimately up to you. And that's the beauty of it.
And I think you're absolutely right. And I think for those of us who are regularly on podcast, hosting, guesting, or both, at least what I've experienced is the more you talk, the more comfortable you become sharing. And the more different people you talk to and experience the range of what they share, the more you start to feel like, well, maybe I could talk about that too. I have a couple of things that I will not talk about because of respect for other people who have asked me not to. But other than that, I'll talk about anything that anybody wants to know about. And so that gives me plenty of flexibility and freedom, especially if I'm a guest. It's their show. They know their audience. They're responsible for extracting from their guests what would be of interest to that audience. And I think, like you, I'm a curious person and I love people. And so there's any number of different ways the conversation would go. I've been meaning to ask you for the last few minutes when you're talking about people being different.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I see people trying really hard to be different or appear different or sound different. They are probably working with some coach who's telling them there's probably be different coaches out. I don't even know, but they are trying to manufacture a difference so that they can stand out. Mm-hmm. We are all aware of how noisy and crowded and busy social media and the internet is. Podcasts are proliferating and everybody is hearing you need to stand out, you need to be different, you need to show what's different about you. And I'm curious what your thoughts are. Like, does everyone have a distinction? They just might need a little help discovering it. Or are there people who really don't have, do, think, or offer anything different? And then how do you promote them? Or maybe you just don't take them on as a client. I don't know.
I think, sure, there are people that just, are wallflowers, as we would call them, that don't stand out. But the truth of the matter is we all are different. Whether or not we want to believe it, we are different. And we're continuously evolving as we grow as human beings, as we age. We're coming into our own skin. I know that for me personally, who I am today at 40 was not who I was at 20.
You're here.
I was not, I would say that I stood up for what I believed in, but I didn't have the courage always to say exactly, this is what I believe in, or, hey, you can shut up because that's wrong. And I'm going to stop you right there. Whereas today, I feel much more comfortable in saying, no, I don't believe in what you are saying. I don't agree with it. We're done. And standing up truly for what I believe in, I think that is part of being different. And it's really just getting comfortable with who you are is what makes you different from everyone else. And that comes across in simply being yourself. I don't think you need to show up and force it. When you mentioned this question, it reminded me of like the freaking reels on Instagram and how everybody's now doing a reel and we're doing videos and we're doing this. And to me, I'm like, I'm 40 years old. I don't want to be standing here doing stupid dances to, songs and pointing and doing this. And I really could give two flying, whats. I have no interest in it. And whether or not that makes me different, I just don't want to do it. And at the same time, a reel's going to make you different. Well, not really, because everyone and their mother's doing it too. So
yeah, how are we supposed to be different if everybody's told this is what the trending thing is? Go do that. I'm looking at the new, and by the way, I love TikTok. I'm not a creator on TikTok yet. Never say never, but it is my favorite platform to consume because of the clever things that people do. What I don't actually like are the trends. What I don't like is seeing like a bunch of people doing the exact same thing. Like, have you seen on TikTok where like there's some song that everybody does this too, where they like go down really low, like in a squat, and then they come up slowly. I'm like, that makes my freaking knees hurt just looking. I'm like, that is a hard no. That is not happening anywhere near me anytime soon or ever. But when I see people doing something that's totally unique, and that is not how you blow up on TikTok or anywhere else, to actually do what's interesting to you, what's exciting to you, what's fun to you, what's creative for you, and fuck the trends. And these are the trending songs, and these are the trending, effects, and, put this filter on so you can see what you look like with bangs or freckles or, what it's like, whatever. I've got an eyebrow pencil. I can just paint some there. Now I go. Now I've got that need met, So I think actually you're making such a good point. And it goes back to the very beginning of our conversation and talking about authenticity. It is not something that you manufacture. It is not something that you calculate and strategize and produce. Like, actually being the outspoken, direct, opinionated, occasionally swearing person is who I actually am. And it's the easiest thing in the world to just be that. And you're also reminding me, I've had people tell me, you probably would be a lot more popular if you didn't swear.
Then you wouldn't be yourself. So.
And popular with who?
Right.
Like, why do I need to be popular with people who wouldn't like me in person anyway? It's so much work to pretend to be someone you're not than to just go with who you are and assume that the people who actually like that will find you. Mm-hmm. I mean, I never thought of myself as a lazy person, but to me, that's a no-brainer. Like, it's just easier and more sustainable. And when I think of all the shitty pitches that are filling up inboxes everywhere, including mine.
And mine.
Is it really that hard to do this well? Like, I know you earn every penny you charge your clients, because if you're going to promote an author, you have read their freaking book. And if you are sharing an entrepreneur, as you call it, stalked them, but like, their shit inside, outside, backwards and forwards. And in some cases, better than they know it themselves, because you're applying your perspective. That takes work. That takes energy. Nobody's going to get the results you get with this copy and paste bullshit that everybody is using. But when that's what everybody seems to be doing, most people are willing to give up their difference and just follow the freaking herd. And it makes me want to shriek.
And I think that, copy and paste is lazy. And there's also agencies who will throw you out to everybody and their mother. They're not going to make sure that you are lining up with the perfect podcast for your listeners. Who is listening that is going to resonate with what you're saying? There are agencies I've come across where you have to provide them with your topics and your media kit. To me, what's the point? That's one of the beautiful things that I offer my clients is we're going to figure that out together. Yeah. Otherwise, like, what's the point? You could just hire somebody overseas for $2 an hour and they can throw you to every podcast that there is, versus someone who's charging $1,300 a month, because that is out there. What I do, what my specialty is to connect with you and to ensure that whatever you put out into the world is going to connect with other people. And I think it's really important, that's what my pitches are all about. I want to connect. I'm a relationship person. I love people. I want to network. I want to truly build relationships with people, to the point that I have hosts who they love me. They're like, give me more. Who else do you have? Because they know that I understand my client and I understand them. And I'm not just simply blindly throwing it all to them. I have so many clients and I have a Rolodex of podcasts, and I could easily just send all of them to everyone, but that does no good. It doesn't benefit anyone. It doesn't benefit the host. It doesn't benefit the listeners, and doesn't benefit the client. So ultimately, it doesn't benefit me. It is
lazy.
It is lazy. Yeah. I think that this is all about connecting with people. And that's really what podcast interviews are about. What promoting yourself to be interviewed on a show should be about. It should be with that connection of other people. And it's what we need more of in this world that we're lacking. And, the likes on Instagram is like, who cares? Are you actually genuinely putting a comment in? Do you care? And not just a bunch of emojis or, oh, that's great. But did you actually read the caption? Did you go, oh, you know what? And by the way, it took someone probably 15 minutes to write that in order to post it. So connect with them. Let them know that you read it and you understand. And yeah, you've been there too. It's really as simple as that. It's just being a decent human being.
God, you wouldn't think that we'd have to be talking about that on a freaking podcast, but in reality, I mean, and I've said this publicly more than once, just not with you yet, that common sense is anything but common, and common courtesy is even more uncommon. People have become much more self-focused and much more inward oriented. And we are on this big watery marble for such a short time. We are surrounded by other humans who give us the possibility of connection. But every once in a while, you gotta tear yourself away from that little screen and all those little characters and all those little images and actually interact with the people. I don't care if you're an introvert, an extrovert, an ambivert, or whatever the newest term is. Like, human beings and connection with them is really the only thing that fucking matters. And it is the only thing that has ever mattered. And I love so much that you said, I have to believe in you. When I think about all the pitches that we talk about and have received, and when I think about interviews that I've started to listen to and then bounced away from, I don't think that can be faked. I think when somebody brings someone on their show and they haven't read their book and they don't know their brand and they literally make the guest do all the work of sharing themselves, and it sounds exactly like it does on every fucking interview they do. I'm sorry, but even though it's a free medium, people are giving you their time, their attention. They could be giving it to someone else or something else or taking a freaking nap. Like, don't waste people's time by not giving a shit.
Yeah.
Like, what are we even here for? Like, I know that I didn't intend to do that, but, you know, I think that is one of the things that makes you different, is that you actually do care, and you don't represent people if you don't care, and if you don't believe in them, and if you are not eager and excited and literally cannot wait to see more people find them.
Yeah, because if I'm bored and I don't believe in if I think you're full of fluff, then it's going to come across. I can't pitch you.
I cannot be bored. I personally, I think we share this, Michelle. I treat boredom like a life-threatening condition. If I am bored, everything goes downhill like hella fast. Like,
yeah, I'm never
my interest,
bored.
my attention, my motivation, my desire, like, you know, down the slide. So I won't be, life is too short for boring conversations. I think that's probably as good a place to end as any, huh?
I love it.
Thank you for being my guest today. Thank you for being you, for being different, for being exceptional, and dare I say, authentic.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for calling me a queen at the beginning.
I thought that was actually a crown. It turns out it's a set of podcast headphones, but
yeah,
maybe I need
wish.
to get my prescription checked. Okay, love, that's a wrap.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Driven Woman podcast with Diane Wingert. Want more straight talk and strategy each week that will take you from spinning to winning? Don't forget to hit subscribe in your podcast player so you won't miss a single episode. Then head on over to the Driven Woman free and private Facebook group community. See you there.